Number 10. The Woolly Mammoth. What two things are big, loud, hairy, smell like Parmesan cheese, and frequent the New York area? If you said Ray Romano and woolly mammoths, then you're correct. It all comes full circle. Starting off with an easy one for you today, and folks, it's one of my favorites. A creature that's been long extinct. Comedians and primetime family sitcoms. No, I'm just kidding. I'm talking about woolly mammoths, the large animals that once roamed the earth. Since these are so common, I thought it would be very fun to do a tale of the tape. Standing anywhere between 2.7 to 3 meters tall in the red corner, weighing in a full 6 tons, the beast from the east, Woolly Mammoth! Okay, well, they weren't just found in the east, but they were big and interesting creatures, especially since this is one of the few ancient species that we've ever interacted with. Having thick skin and fur made them difficult to hunt. It would take a few blows. However, if a smaller one was taken, it would make for a lasting meal. Interesting creatures.
Number 9. Glyptodon. Take an armadillo, size that bad boy up, give it a spicy tail, take away its ability to curl up in a ball, and make it stupid looking, and you've got the 10-foot long 1-ton Glyptodon that lived 2 million to 10,000 years ago. Now, it would be easy to mistake this guy with a turtle or a tortoise, but it was in fact a mammal. It also had a soft underbelly that any predator able to flip over this walking Volkswagen Beetle would be able to exploit. These guys were native to South America, and like I said, they actually were around for a long time, living just past the last ice age. It's believed, like with most things, us humans had a not so small part to play in their disappearance from this world. We would hunt them for food and for their shells, which evidence says ancient man used as shelter from snow and rain.
Number 8. Titanoboa. I actually didn't know this one existed either. There's going to be a trend of large and scary animals here. Well, in the northeastern part of Colombia, a true beast lays still in the jungle, just waiting for a prey to dare come across its path. What would a titan boa do if prey came its way? Well, just like its smaller counterpart, it would constrict until you went for a big nap where you would then most likely be swallowed whole. Ugh. Well, at least that's what horror films would want you to think, as recent studies suggest they may have actually only had a diet of fish. If you've ever been on a school field trip to a zoo and got to pet the animals, the boa constrictor is always one of those animals. I don't know why, they always got one on hand, just in their pocket. It's weird. Wouldn't fit, but which I don't know why, because if you've ever felt the power of those muscles, well, it would be a very memorable field trip. Just try and imagine that upscaled by 10. I'm glad this one went extinct a long time ago. That's too big of a snake. Too much power. Too much.
Number 7. Basilosaurus. When I hear the word basil, I think of a lovely smelling herb. Or I think of old Basil, a kind old man, probably with white hair and a big bald spot and a mustache. Now, thanks to this video, I will think of a 65-foot long sea monster with a 3-foot head and a bite force as strong as a T-Rex. Whales have been around for a heck of a long time, and they have had many different ancestors and cousins. All of them were different levels of odd and terrifying. Basil here was one of the earliest identified ones. It was fairly different from its modern descendants, as you can tell from these pictures. It had a longer eel-like body with that tiny head. It only weighed about 10 tons, which is odd for a whale. Being the ancestor of whales, Basilosaurus is a marine mammal, but for a long time it was actually mistaken for a marine reptile, like the mosasaur, being given the nickname king lizard, which is doubly odd because it wasn't even the biggest whale species. That would be the Leviathan killer whale. I think I remember why I'm terrified of the sea, yeah.
Number 6. Sabretooth Tiger. What's scarier than a full-grown tiger? How about a fully grown tiger with teeth the size of Bowie knives? Wow. Sometimes nature is scary and makes me question reality. The saber-toothed tigers are one of those things. A saber-toothed tiger's diet consisted of large animals, so watch out Wooly Mammoth and maybe Ray Romano. Obviously most recognized for the protruding large canine teeth that sit outside the mouth even when closed, making for great puncture weapons, as if the large cats needed any more help hunting their prey. Coming into being around the same size as a large Siberian tiger, this is one hefty kitty, and one you wouldn't want to mess with. Fortunately for me and the club of extremely cute gentlemen who cannot run very fast, I do not have to worry about outrunning this speedy, beefy predator. Their extinction is connected to both climate change and a lack of food.
Number 5. The giant sloth. If all of your information about prehistoric giant ground sloths was gathered from watching the animated Ice Age movies, buckle up. For starters, some of these guys were as big as elephants and one of the biggest land mammals. Other versions were as big as oxen or bears. So these suckers were pretty beefy, which I'm sure Sid the Sloth would be happy to hear. They also mostly walked on all fours, although they probably did stand on their hind legs to reach the top of trees and possibly as a defensive tactic. Ice Age was somewhat correct about how they were a little odd. For example, they probably did actually waddle thanks to their giant feet. They also oddly had teeth on the sides of their mouths used for crushing plants. The giant ground sloths are unsurprisingly related to our modern day sloths, but also to anteaters and armadillos. They were mainly South American mammals, but had different versions all over the Americas from 35 million to 11,000 years ago, until around the time of the Ice Age.
Number 4, Gigantopithecus. Put your hands together if you want to clap as I take you through this monkey rap. DK. Donkey Kong. You know what I'm saying? Great game. Although I never understood why his name is Donkey Kong. I digress. Why am I bringing up one of Nintendo's beloved mascots? Well, that's because I'm talking giant ape, baby. That's right. Gigantopithecus was a large ape that lived in Southeast Asia, some parts of China, and Vietnam. Coming in at a whopping 660 pounds, DK here would need to eat a lot of plants, which, judging by teeth and molars and other great apes, suggests he was a herbivore. At least I hope. I'm just gonna keep calling him DK because otherwise I'll be here all day with my dyslexia, but DK is most closely related to orangutans. However, 100,000 years ago, after some severe climate changes and food shortages, DK was no more, and it was game over.
Number 3, Terror Bird. Such a fitting name. This carnivorous bird became the top predator in South America after the dinosaurs went bye-bye. This bird had about 25 different species, ranging from 1 to 3 meters or 10 feet in height. That's a big bird! Some species could have been scavengers, but others, they were definitely apex predators. Some had big, strong, stout legs that were probably good for kicking prey or even crushing bones, with big curved claws or talons for stabby behavior. They had big skulls with bones that were fused together, unlike a lot of birds, which was probably useful for pecking things into the afterlife with their massive sharp beaks that were also likely useful for getting big, nasty, fleshy bites. Their closest living relatives in South America today take out their prey by picking it up and slamming it into the ground over and over and over and over again. So imagine that, but from a giant 10-foot angry ostrich with a giant beak. So yeah, Terror Bird. It's a good name.
Number 2, Giant Beaver. Yeah, my Aunt Flo used to have a bear-sized beaver. Too bad it ran away. Okay, all jokes aside, giant beavers, also known as castoroids. That's a strange name. First discovered in the very busy and important state of Ohio back in 1837, these fossils pop up anywhere from Toronto all the way down to Florida. Getting as large as 7 feet long and just shy of 300 pounds. This is a beaver whose dam you don't want to break. Despite how awesome the giant beavers were, they are now extinct, and despite the Hudson Bay companies or the dismay of French-Canadian fur trappers, the beaver went extinct thousands of years ago. Today we are unsure what made them go extinct. Some suggest hunting, but we're not even sure if they existed along early humans. All I know is that a tail on that bad boy would be very dangerous. Seriously, people don't think the beavers are dangerous, but you gotta be careful around them. And I salute the beaver, as it is Canada's national animal after all.
Number 1, Andrewsarchus. And here we are, Andrew's ancient relative, the Andrewsarchus. The name Andrewsarchus was given as a dedication to Roy Chapman Andrews, who I share a last name with, so maybe I'm related too. Who can say? Andrew's such a unique name, isn't it? Which is fitting because this bad boy right here was unique. Its massive 3-foot skull was very similar to a wolf's skull, but its jaw and tooth structure made it more like a mesonychid, which are related to horses and deers, but also relatives to whales and hippos. It was a giant, hoofed carnivore, like a mix between a pig and a wolf, but massive. It probably ate literally anything it could get its jaws around. It could have been anything from tinier mammals to plants and roots to giant herbivores related to rhinos. If I ran into a huge, hoofed pig wolf capable of taking down rhinos, I'd just lay down and give up. Luckily, it lived 45 to 35 million years ago in Asia, specifically the area around and near modern-day Mongolia. And Andrewsarchus did not adapt well to the changing times and didn't last as long as other ancient creatures on this list. Just like Andrew, we're still trying to figure out exactly what kind of animal Andrewsarchus was.
At number 10, Paranthropus robustus. Let's kick things off with a genus of hominin that we didn't get to discuss in our last video. The genus Paranthropus was a group of now extinct hominins known for their robust skulls and distinct jaw shapes. Paranthropus robustus was one of 3 species within this genus and lived between 1.6 and 1.2 million years ago in southern Africa. These hominins were quite short compared to later humans, standing at an average height of 3'9" for males and 3'3" for females, so these guys were pretty short. This species was known for their chewing. Yeah, weird flex, I know, but the standards for excellence were pretty low 1.6 million years ago. Their teeth and jaws were specifically designed for eating tough fibrous foods, and their jaw muscles were very large and strong to make all that happen, hence the name robustus. Other than their impressive eating abilities, not much else has been discovered about this species. No stone tools have been associated with Paranthropus robustus, however it is believed that they did use bones as tools to dig in termite mounds for snack time. At number 9, Paranthropus boise. Up next we have another species of Paranthropus, Paranthropus boise. This early hominin came before Paranthropus robustus and lived in eastern Africa between 2.3 and 1.2 million years ago. Much like other classifications of Paranthropus, this species also had a specialized skull for intense chewing. They had very large faces because of their large jaws and temporalis muscles, which are the muscles that you use for chewing. What Paranthropus boise had that other members of his genus didn't was thick dental enamel. In fact, Boise had the thickest dental enamel of any early human. They also had larger teeth than Paranthropus robustus, and these guys basically just lived to eat. It was their only real skill. Other than their eating habits, we know that Paranthropus boise also lived mostly in grasslands. Moving on to the third species in the Paranthropus genus, we have Paranthropus aethiopicus. Because very few fossils of this species have been discovered, scientists don't really know much about Paranthropus aethiopicus. But we do know that they lived between 2.7 and 2.3 million years ago in eastern Africa. Like the rest of his Paranthropus pals, he was built to eat. The shape and size of this species' teeth suggest that they lived on a mostly vegetarian diet. Since we don't really know much else about this species, I'll instead tell you about what happened to the Paranthropus genus. Well, obviously they all went extinct, but funnily enough, they died off as a result of the very thing that they were designed for. This genus was designed to eat, but eventually they hit an evolutionary dead end, and they all just sort of died off because they were too specialized and couldn't adapt to the new food sources being produced by Africa's changing climate. Paranthropus also shows no direct connection to the family tree that produced Homo Sapiens, so when you look at things, Paranthropus kind of just existed on this earth for a hot minute and pretty much accomplished nothing. That's pretty depressing. At number 7, Australopithecus Africanus. In our last video, I told you guys about Australopithecus afarensis, but today I'm going to tell you about his relative, Australopithecus africanus. This early human lived in southern Africa between 3.3 and 2.1 million years ago. They were anatomically similar to Australopithecus afarensis, having a combination of ape-like and human characteristics. Compared to afarensis, Africanus had a rounder head and smaller teeth. The remains of Africanus also indicated that they were adapted for walking around bipedally, but they were also adapted for climbing as well. For a while, scientists thought that Australopithecus was a hunter after finding bones near their remains that at the time suggested that they used bones as tools and weapons, but it was later discovered that it was predators like lions, leopards, and hyenas who were responsible for leaving those bones behind. Those same predators were also responsible for hunting down Australopithecus africanus as well and making them part of their midnight snack. At number 6, Ardipithecus ramidus. Ardipithecus, aka Ardi, was a genus of early hominin who lived about 4.4 million years ago in eastern Africa. Ardi's discovery was very important in the scientific community because the evidence that was gathered from the remains that were found indicated some pretty key information regarding the evolution of primates to becoming bipedal. The foot bones discovered indicated a large toe combined with a rigid foot, and this combined with a reconstruction of Ardi's pelvic bone showed adaptations that combined tree climbing and bipedal activity. Ardi's discovery also opened a debate that contradicted the previous theory that the origin of bipedality occurred in the open savanna because Ardi's fossils indicated that she actually lived in a wooded environment. Before this, scientists believed that humans started to walk on 2 legs rather than 4 as a result of the climate becoming drier as environments became more open and grassy. At number 5, Auroran Tchadensis. Auroran Tchadensis is one of the oldest early humans in our lineage. Auroran lived between 6.2 and 5.8 million years ago and was first discovered in 2001, giving him the nickname the Millennial Man. So far, 13 fossils have been found from 5 different specimens of Auroran Tchadensis, and so far what we know about this species is that they had teeth that were similar to modern humans, but more importantly that evidence from their upper femur suggests that they were bipedal, given the evidence of bone buildup found on other bipeds. This species was also able to climb trees, but this discovery was very exciting for scientists because this evidence showed that early humans started their journey of bipedalism so long ago. Because this species is at the base of the human family tree, it had more ape-like qualities than anything else, other than the fact that it was probably bipedal. So far, Auroran Tchadensis is the only species in the Auroran genus. At number 4, Sahelanthropus Tchadensis. Not much is known about this next species, but we do know that they had an early human companion back in the day, and that companion was Lucy, aka Australopithecus Africanus. Sahelanthropus Tchadensis was a flat-faced, small-brained bipedal species that lived in eastern Africa about 3.5 million years ago during the time of Australopithecus Africanus. Sahelanthropus could represent a closer branch to modern humans on our evolutionary tree, but so far there isn't enough evidence to fully support that hypothesis. Was first discovered in the late 90s in, you guessed it, Kenya. And when the remains were discovered, scientists saw that this early human's fossils featured characteristics that were previously unseen with any other human fossils. Though comparing the remains of Sahelanthropus and Australopithecus Africanus, scientists noted that these two species had very different diets and therefore probably didn't have to fight for the same food source. So far, scientists don't exactly know how to place Sahelanthropus in our early human family tree because there isn't enough evidence, but some people believe that this species could be closely related to the Homo genus. At number 3, Australopithecus Sedira. The discovery of Australopithecus Sedira fossils in the Mammoth cave are one of the most complete early human fossil sets that have been found, and they give a lot of insight into the moment where the genus Homo evolved. This species lived between 1.97 and 1.98 million years ago, and some scientists believe that they are the bridging point between Australopithecus and Homo. Based on the size and shape of Australopithecus Sedira's teeth, chest, pelvic bones, skull, and legs, scientists have been able to pinpoint where certain Homo characteristics came from and when these features appeared. Evidence found in the remains of Australopithecus Sedira also showed that this species adapted to a different way of upright walking. Normally, we would see humans walking with their feet pointed straight out, but based on this species' remains, Australopithecus Sedira walked with their feet pointing inwards, with their weight put on the outer parts of their feet, showing that humans evolved on more than one path of walking. At number 2, Ardipithecus Sedira. Ardipithecus Sedira was a species of early human who resembled very closely to a chimpanzee but was also bipedal. This species lived in Western Africa between 5.8 and 5.2 million years ago. Not much is known about Ardipithecus Sedira because this species is only known in the fossil record. However, these scientists are so good that they were able to determine this species' bipedality based on a toe bone alone because they could see that this species was able to push off their toes as if they were walking like you or I. One of the only other things that we know about Ardipithecus Sedira is that they had teeth that were similar to that of chimpanzees, but they were more narrow, which suggests that they were designed to eat fibrous foods. At number 1, the Denisovans. Now this species is probably the most mysterious of them all because we know that they once existed, but there's not enough evidence in fossil data to actually give them a scientific name. Most of what we know about them comes from DNA evidence. The Denisovans were a species or subspecies of archaic human who once lived in Asia. This species is what some researchers call morphospecies, which are, quote, a group of biological organisms whose members differ from all other groups in some aspect of their form and structure. Basically, these quote-unquote humans looked nothing like us nor any of our ancient human ancestors. All we know about the Denisovans is that they are different. This species was discovered in a lab when scientists pulled 50,000-year-old DNA out of a finger bone of a fossil that was discovered in a cave in Siberia. Given their age and the location that the remains were found, researchers assumed that their DNA would match those of Neanderthals. However, their findings revealed that this DNA belonged to a group of humans who last shared an ancestor with Neanderthals approximately 765,000 years ago. Other than this information, not much else is known about this population. If more fossils are discovered, then they may be granted the scientific name of Homo denisova, but until then, they remain a mystery to the scientific community. At number 10, Homo heidelbergensis. Let's kick off this list by talking about one extinct species that scientists think is the species that caused the evolutionary separation between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. This is exciting stuff. Homo heidelbergensis was one of our common ancestors who lived between 700,000 and 200,000 years ago. I say that backwards because lineage. You get it. They were believed to have lived in Europe and Asia. These early humans were believed to have been our first ancestors to live in colder climates due to their physical makeup. Homo heidelbergensis were short and had wide bodies, which scientists think was adapted in order to conserve heat since they lived in colder climates. It's also hypothesized that these ancient humans were the first to routinely hunt large animals like wild deer, horses, elephants, hippos, and rhinos, build shelters, and create dwellings out of wood and rock. They were innovators who had definite control over fires and wooden tools. Appearance-wise, they had a large brow bridge, larger brain case, and a flatter face. Evidence suggests that they worked in groups, which they definitely would have needed to in order to hunt large prey, since at the time, humans were relatively low on the food chain, unlike today, where modern humans stand as the top predator. Homo heidelbergensis marked a turning point in human evolution, and I call that positive growth. At number 9, Homo Rudolfensis. Now let's throw it back to one of the older extinct human species on this list. Homo Rudolfensis dwelled in eastern Africa between 1.9 and 1.8 million years ago, and their fossils have been found in areas like northern Kenya, northern Tanzania, and Malawi. Homo Rudolfensis was one of many human species living around the same time and area. Other species from that time include Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and Paranthropus boise, whom we will cover in a little bit. When Homo Rudolfensis remains were uncovered, it was originally thought that they were from Homo habilis because of a few distinct differences like its larger brain case, longer face, larger molar and premolar teeth, but scientists couldn't confidently classify this early human as habilis. The size of Rudolfensis' teeth also raised the question of whether or not this species was just an Australopithecus with a larger brain, but not enough evidence has been found to support that. At number 8, Homo habilis. Homo habilis, nicknamed Handyman, lived in eastern and southern Africa between 2.4 million and 1.4 million years ago. This species of human was one of the earliest members of the genus Homo because its features were slightly smaller than others of the older hominin species, but habilis still had ape-like features such as long arms and a moderately prognathic face, which basically means that their lower jaw was still protruding a bit like other apes. This species was given the nickname Handyman because it's believed that they were the first makers of stone tools thanks to their larger brains. Other than their use of stone tools, Homo habilis was also able to survive and adapt so long thanks to their ability to change their diet seasonally. Evidence shown in tooth studies tells us that because their tooth enamel was still strong like Australopithecus, they were still good for lots of chewing, therefore they were able to break down a larger array of foods, including tougher foods. Homo habilis was also believed to have been the ancestor of Homo erectus, but since scientists have found evidence suggesting that they actually coexisted in eastern Africa, that put a hole, so to speak, in the evolutionary timeline, so now they don't know who fits where. At number 7, Homo florensis. Here's a really interesting species of human that might not have made it into your textbooks. Homo florensis, nicknamed the Hobbit, lived in Indonesia about 100,000 to 50,000 years ago. And as you could probably guess by its nickname, these ancient humans were very, very small. It is estimated that they only stood about 3'6" on average and weighed just over 60 pounds. Homo florensis also had tiny brains, large teeth, shrugged forward shoulders, had no chins, and receding foreheads. So they definitely didn't look like the rest of us humans. So far, the remains of these humans have only been found on the island of Flores, Indonesia, and because of that, scientists believe that this species of human was subjected to island dwarfism, an evolutionary process that occurs from long-term isolation on an island with limited food. This island also had pygmy elephants who are also extinct, unfortunately. I would have liked to have one as a pet. Cool. What's pretty cool though is that scientists are currently exploring new evidence that might suggest that Homo florensis might have already been small before even arriving to the island. At number 6, Sahelanthropus Tchadensis. Now we're going to throw it back super far with this next human species who lived between 7 and 6 million years ago. This early human species is one of the oldest known species on the human family tree, and they lived in West Central Africa. It is believed that walking upright helped the species survive living in diverse habitats like grasslands and forests. This species was essentially the bridging point of evolution from ape to human. Though they still possessed ape-like qualities like a small brain, sloping face, very prominent brow ridges, and elongated skull, they also had human-like qualities such as small canine teeth, a short middle part of the face, and a spinal cord opening underneath the skull instead of towards the back as seen in non-bipedal apes. Not much else is known about this species due to lack of fossils, but it's still cool to be able to see the moment in time where we went from apes to humans. At number 5, Australopithecus Africanus. Australopithecus Africanus is one of the longest living early human species out there. Also referred to as Lucy's species, these early humans lived between 3.85 and 2.95 million years ago, and over 300 specimens have been collected so far. Lucy's species lived for approximately 900,000 years, which is over 4 times longer than our own species. What's pretty cool about these ancient humans is that similarly to chimpanzees, Africanus young grew to maturity much faster than modern humans, leaving parental units less time for guidance and parental socialization. Imagine if your adult life began before the age of 18. I could never. I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that I'm an adult now, and I'm 22. Like, give me more time, please. I'm not ready. Australopithecus Africanus had ape and human-like qualities. For the most part, they were pretty apey. Their faces were more so like an ape, they had long arms with curved fingers for climbing trees, but they also walked upright and had small canine teeth like every other early human species. These guys also survived off a mostly fruit diet, but sometimes they ate the odd lizard or two. Because they had curved fingers, scientists want to know if Lucy's species walked around most of the time or if they still spent their time in trees, but that's just one of the many unanswered questions about this early human. At number 4, Homo erectus. Moving right along, we have Homo erectus. This early human species was the first to possess more modern human-like features and body proportions. Before Homo erectus, early human species had short legs and long arms, but with this one, they were shown to have long legs and short arms like us. This suggests that they were more adapted to living life on the ground with the ability to walk or even run longer distances. Now with their newly adapted ability to travel longer distances on foot, combined with their larger brains, this meant that they needed more fuel to survive. It's believed that they ate more protein that could be easily digested, and with their shorter digestive tract, it took them less time for those nutrients to be absorbed. Scientists also discovered the earliest evidence of hearths during the time of Homo erectus, which suggests that these early humans spent time around a fire, cooking their food, and socializing with their group. Some believe that Homo erectus may have been the direct ancestor to Homo sapiens, but there's not enough evidence to come to this conclusion just yet. At number 3, Homo Naledi. Homo Naledi is the most recently discovered early human species, so not much is known about them yet. What we do know is that these early humans lived between 335,000 and 236,000 years ago. The evolutionary tree of the Homo genus is very messy already, so placing this new species on that timeline is still pretty tricky. Based on specific findings from this species, it looks like Homo naledi possesses some qualities that are more Australopithecus-like due to the size of their pelvises and shoulders, and others that are more Homo because of the size of their hands, feet, and brains. There's much more research that needs to be done on this species, but it might answer a lot of questions for scientists. At number 2, Homo Neanderthalensis. Though you may have heard of Homo Neanderthalensis, or the Neanderthal, how much do you really know about these early humans? The Neanderthals are our closest extinct human relative. Though they are known for their signature face shapes with their large faces, angled cheekbones, and large noses, they're also some of the most interesting early humans because evidence has been found that paints a picture of their behaviors and rituals. Neanderthals created and used a wide array of tools. They controlled fire, lived in shelters, made and wore clothing, they were good at hunting, and they even made ornamental or symbolic items, which really wasn't a thing before them. Another interesting fact about Neanderthals is that these early humans practiced burial rites. There's been evidence to show that these early humans would deliberately bury their dead and even mark their burial sites with offerings like flowers. No other species up until that point had ever done anything like this, so I think that's pretty cool. And finally, at number 1, Homo Sapiens. Now you're probably saying to yourself, Bree, these humans are not extinct and we certainly know that they exist. And yes, I know that. However, how much do you really know about your own species? And did you know that we are currently going extinct? Yeah, let's start with the facts though. We, Homo sapiens, popped up on this earth in Africa about 300,000 years ago, and we've been here ever since. Go us, I think. Debatable. What made us different from other humans who were lurking about was our ability to adapt. See, when times got rough for other early humans, most of them weren't able to adapt to their environment and they soon died off, whether from the elements or from being killed. On top of that, we were skilled with our weapons and tools. We were able to make smaller, more complex, refined tools, including composite stone tools, fish hooks and harpoons, bows and arrows, spear throwers, and sewing needles. Soon, we were able to go from hunting and gathering to farming, changing the earth to fit our needs rather than hunt for whatever we could. We were able to go off and travel the world, settling in every continent, developing cultures, cities, empires, and accidentally domesticating dogs. 'Cause yeah, we kinda did that.